Happy 4th of July weekend, folks. As promised, I have an audio only. I mentioned the topic in my last video. This is secondary amps or bedroom amps where you've already got a setup somewhere else and you don't want to duplicate. You don't want to have more pedals. You don't want to be fiddling around. You want something that is kind of standalone as a practice amp or just chilling out. It could be in your living room, it could be in your bedroom, it could be in your kitchen, it could be for taking, to the cabin in the woods. The only criteria I had was reasonably portable. I mean, it had to be small and light enough to be easily picked up in one hand and thrown on a car seat. It had to be not battery powered. And it had to have at least some effects. The base minimum was like a reverb, preferably reverb and delay, and it'd be nice if it had some other options, but that was really just something to make it not dry. For the most part, this is pretty easy. There's a limited selection of these amps. Most of the stuff on the market is either way more money than it's worth for this particular category, and are meant to be studio tools or just high-end boutique stuff, and certainly there's plenty of those out there. This was meant to be sub $300, say, and really in the $150 at the most to let's say $100 to $200 was the primary goal. The ones I compared directly, and this is not a complete list, this is just the ones I'm going to include, and there is one very obvious choice that I did not include, actually two, and I will mention those before we start. So the ones I included: the Blackstar ID Core 10, the Code 25 from Marshall, the Mustang LT25, the Orange Crush 20 RT, and the Fender Mustang 1 version 2. Now, all of these have small speakers. The Mustang 1 has the biggest speaker, and I believe the Blackstar has the smallest, but speaker size wasn't a huge criteria here. It wasn't really a factor. And while my complaints about the Blackstar could be possibly related to the speakers, I don't think that was the main issue. The two that I'm not including that are obvious things to include in this list: the Katana Air, which obviously fits this niche pretty well, and the Yamaha TH series. They have a number of options in that category that, again, they are prime contenders in this niche. That is probably the best choice, to be honest, in this niche. But my local Guitar Center doesn't have any of the THs in stock. They had one used, but it was the acoustic model. So I couldn't try it out. And to be honest, the price point was too high for what I was looking for in terms of my shopping. So it was kind of not worth the hassle of going and hunting one down. So I'm just going to run through them. The Blackstar. This was the ID Core 10. Very small, very light, perfectly adequate power. I liked the setup. I liked the way it was laid out. I wasn't thrilled with how you had to set up the effects. Not because I didn't think it worked well, but because it was complicated to take advantage of on the fly. It would be very easy to get confused or to hit the wrong button or otherwise screw it up while trying to take advantage of that ability on the fly. But didn't have any problem trying it out. No issues setting it up. Mostly sounded good. As other people have commented in other reviews of it, it sounds a little metallic in a lot of its presets, a lot of the voicings. I never could quite get it to be creamy or smooth outside of the warm clean. The bright clean was the most metallic of the sounds, and then it went from there. But the warm clean sounded great. I really was pretty favorably impressed with it for what it was. And if that had been my sound that I was going for, that would have been a very strong contender. The Code 25, the Marshall Code 25. Now, I have a love-hate relationship with the codes. I think they look awesome. They are like the modern take on the classic Marshall vibe, and I like it. Some people don't. I do. I wish the knobs had a better feel to them. But that's true of the old school Marshalls too. It's just the pots they use. What I didn't like, and I know I'm gonna get bitched at for this, but what I didn't like is that I spent 15 minutes trying to get a decent sound out of that amp and gave up. I didn't have the phone app, and I couldn't read anything on the damn screen because the Code 25 has a minuscule screen compared to the other models. Could not figure it out, could not tell what I was doing well enough to quickly dial in a sound. I could go through the presets and get, close enough, whatever, it's sort of there. But it wasn't easy on the fly while I'm using it to mess with that. You can't just reach over and make a change to your effects, for example. Wasn't thrilled, very frustrating. I'm aware that the phone app is awesome, that it works quite well. I'm aware that if you connect it to the computer, you can make a lot of changes. I'm aware that if you dig down into those menus and fiddle with it through the LCD, you have a lot of control. None of that helps when I'm sitting there reaching over and wanted to make a little tweak. And honestly, I'm not looking for full featured. I'm looking for easy. This is not the amp for the tinker that I'm shopping for here. This was the amp for I want to plug in and play. Let's keep it simple. So the Mustang 25, LT25, similar problems. Its only advantage is that the presets were a little better. When I scrolled through, it just seemed to be less weird, less annoying. And part of this, I admit, maybe because I had a GT40, so it's a little more familiar. But again, having to go through menus to fiddle with the effects that much, having to deal with the LCD to see what I was doing, and I had glare off the lights. I can see there being glare if you're outside. I could see there being glare from overhead lights at home. Just annoying. Not horribly. It was a good amp. It sounded good. It was the second best sounding of the set overall. Each of the amps had a particular sound that it seemed to do better than the others. The LT25 seemed to have more of them better than most. I did like that it had a kind of, I don't want to say they call it an acoustic sim. I don't know if I would really call it an acoustic sim, but it was a non-electric guitar preset to use with an electric guitar. It sounded pretty good. I certainly would not say it was super accurate to an actual, acoustic. But if your goal was to just not sound like an electric guitar right then and you just wanted to chill out and strum some Brown-Eyed Girl or something, it was there. It was nice. It was something that I had missed on some of the other units. The Orange Crush 20 RT, and this would apply to the 35 RT as well. I love these, but they are one-trick ponies. Or to be honest, they're two-trick ponies because they're switchable channels. They really need pedals. They need somebody who that's the sound they want, and that's what they're going for. And if you want a variety, if you want some flexibility, they're not the amp for you. And it really, 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 and I can't emphasize this enough, it is the kind of amp you got to take home and try. And you're either going to love it or be totally uninspired. I had one. I had a 35 R. Did I have a 30? I can't remember if I had the 35 or the 20. I think I had the 35. I had the effects loop, so probably the 35. And I had it for a week, and I took it back. I just could not get into it. And I like orange. I like that sound. It's just a very specific amp. So moving on. However, I do give it props. It was the easiest to use of all of these. It was the plug in, 10 seconds on knobs, and you're done. Like, just play, enjoy. So that takes us to the last one. And I will point out that this is the one I ended up buying. And I got a good laugh out of this because this is the amp that the Guitar Center salesman who helped me when I first got into guitar tried to sell me. And I ended up going with the Orange Crush 12 and returning it not so long afterward because, well, it's a one-trick pony. And you've got that trade-off of volume gain and tonal quality. And I couldn't get into it. Loved it, sounded great, but it was just not the right amp. Well, he was right. The Mustang 1, version 2 in this case, is very flexible, is very good sounding. It's not going to win any awards for that, but it doesn't have any odd tonal qualities that were irritating. It didn't have any tinniness. It didn't have any boxiness in most of the settings. There's nothing to go, this sucks, as opposed to most of the others where there was at some point, I'm just sitting there frustrated. What it does well is the presets. There's a bunch, as in, I believe 36. There's 3 banks of presets, and they're named on the amp. The names are meaningless if you go in and configure them. The names are literally, those are the default names. If you go into the Fuse software, you can set up your presets regardless of what they're called on the amp. So you have to make your own little cheat sheet or just memorize what you have where. Which goes true for the effects. The effects setup on the amp controls is very limited. You basically have A1 through 3, B1 through 3, C1 through 3, D1 through 3. So 12 options, right? A, B, C, D times 3. And then you got modulation for the same thing. So your delay and reverb is separate from your modulation. Now, what does that leave you? There's really no boost included in that. There's no there's not a whole lot of flexibility, let's say. And there's no ability to control the output of those. There's no adjusting them on the unit. You're either on or off for each one. So what do? You plug the thing into your computer and you set them up for each preset. And then you just switch presets. If you want more or less reverb, for example, just change it. In fact, I kind of like that when you're using it, you really don't have to play with it. It's on off for the effects. You can dial through the 12 options for each one. That's it. If you want something else, you're going to have to plug it in and figure it out. And it makes you set up your presets and just go with them. And you've got the controls on the amp for bass, treble, volume, gain, and master. It keeps it a little simpler. I like that it's got a classic look. It's kind of a modern take on a classic Fender look. I wish that the effects had a level knob like the Blackstar. I wish I could just turn it up or turn it down so I could say, okay, I'm on reverb 3 and A3 say, and I just want a little more of it. Yeah, you can't. You just can't. So that's annoying. So yeah, that is it. That is my comparison. I'm not saying that any of these are bad. I think that in the right scenario for the right person, all of these are excellent. I certainly could see using the Blackstar in particular as a college dorm room or small apartment amp. It is, how to put this? It sounds bigger than it is. It's two small speakers. The stereo effect, when I was sitting right in front of it, was dramatic. It was truly impressive. And it's built into the presets for the various effects. Like, they use that stereo ability. The LT25, I'm not impressed. I thought it was perfectly serviceable, but I agree with the general trend that the Mustang series previous to the current sets was better. The Mustang 1, 2, 3, I believe there's a 4. Those were just better. And technologically they're not, but from our point of view as musicians, they were. Let's see, what else we got? The Code 25, if you're going to use the app, or if you're going to set up one preset or two presets, for example, and leave them and just switch between them, go for it. Knock yourself out. It's got that look. It's got good sound. Not great, but certainly, for this purpose, you're not going to hear that. The Orange, I honestly think they have the best speakers of the bunch. I think that the reverb that they have built in is very nice. I think they are the best built of the bunch, the toughest and the best construction quality. But if you don't like that sound, if that's not what you're going for, skip it. So anyway, that is it. Have a great holiday, folks. Don't drink and drive. Have some fun and keep playing.